Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SuperCoach Mates. Well, round 20 is done and dusted, which means I think for a lot of leagues, we're probably into the final stage. So, to all the teams out there who are playing finals, good luck. I guess for the people in the top sort of 500 or so, this is basically the runway to the 50K grand prize or whatever it is this year. So, I'm joined tonight by someone who's probably not going to be in that in that group, and that is Thomas. How are you, Thomas? And obviously, how was your weekend? Given that the Saints had a very, very impressive win against the, well, it has to be said, very close to being back Rand in Essendon. But how are you?
Yeah, going all right. Yeah, obviously very nice when I saw that win live, which was nice to see. It's almost like if we could have streamed that month ago in the first half of the season, that would have set us up for season 24 really nicely. But hopefully the boys can get a couple more wins in the last four rounds and really kind of shake up the eight as it is. But yeah, super coach wise, scored actually. I thought I was actually doing quite nicely. I think that Bulldogs Sydney game probably cost me and a few others a fair few points with regards to the likes of Dale and English not doing super crash hot. But yeah, 24.57, which didn't really change my ranking at all. I think it dropped like 4 spots or less than. Let me just quickly check. I dropped, 42 spots down. So not really, just really stagnated. I brought in someone which I'll explain in a little bit who I was hoping would have set the house on fire against the Suns, but kind of had a slow second half. I didn't actually watch that game because obviously I was at St Kilda Essendon, but we'll talk about that more later. So yeah, 24.57, entrenched in kind of that top 1500, which is not too bad, but hopefully I can really push hard in the last couple of weeks with no trades left and see what damage I can do towards the end of the season. But yeah, Jonas as well, going from strength to strength. I don't know if he dropped or rose. I'm assuming he dropped as well. 24.48. Over a ranking of 525. Hopefully he stays in the top 1K. He's had a pretty good season. And Nathan, how's your draft going? And I keep meaning to get your actual team up on screen most weeks. I keep forgetting. But yeah, how's your draft going and how are you looking for the kind of last 4 rounds of the season?
Yeah, well, I had another win in draft, so I am unbeaten in our. This is our second season. We had the season in the first half of the year where I made the prelim final. Came from I think fourth or fifth. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, this second half of the year, we're sort of just done a smaller league, but I'm on top of it. So on top, undefeated. So yeah, team's flying, going well. So I can't complain.
Yeah, nice. Hopefully, towards the end of the season or when the season kind of concludes in round 24, we can have a pretty deeper dive into draft, and hopefully it's something that we're keen to getting on next season in a bigger space, and hopefully you've got a bit of insight with regards to how you've gone this season and kind of your tips of the or tricks of the trade when it comes to draft as you've played the majority of the season. But moving on to my player of the round is Lloyd Meek, who's probably been player of the round or close to for the last couple of weeks. Did very nicely on the weekend in a round where Ruck struggled predominantly. Yeah, scored 115 Supercoach points. Could have gone 130 at least. I think he was subbed off. Oh, not subbed off, sorry. He was rested when the game was pretty much done and dusted in the last kind of 15 minutes of that final quarter against the Crows. So, yeah, very impressive. A lot of people I've had a few DMs with regards to Meek in particular saying why is he scoring so well or when we can't really see him on pitch, but he doesn't do much around the ground per se, but yeah, huge hit out to advantage numbers. He's elite ranked in hit outs to advantage, averaging 10.5 hit outs a game to advantage, which is massive considering how well Supercoach score them, like 4 points per hit out to advantage. That's pretty much 40 to 53 points there on average per game, and the rest of the stuff he gets around the ground, contest marks, goals, and he's elite in hitouts ranked. Got 35 on the weekend against Riley O'Brien. I could see him doing very nicely in the next 2 weeks. Could be a potential sneaky VC option as well, just thinking of it. But yeah, just having a quick look at my team just to show everyone before we move on to the trade in and outs. Let me just bring it up here. If I go Just give me 2 minutes whilst I bring up SuperCoach. So yeah, as you can see there on screen now, hopefully scored 24.57. But just a quick look at my team. Obviously, I don't have any trades left, which is a bit unfortunate considering I probably wanted 1 or 2 trades extra to kind of fix up a few holes. But the player I did bring in as a 23rd premium, I was tossing up potentially trading out McKercher straight up to a ultra premium, like a Lockie Neal of the type and whatever. But decided maybe having a little bit of flexibility might help. And Hugh McCluggage was the one I brought in, which I think he was doing very nicely against the Suns until halftime. Was on about 60 and just slowed right down, which was a little bit frustrating. But yeah, he's a consistent player. I like him as a player. I know the Saints have been pretty keen on him all year. Hopefully, he can get a spike score against us on the weekend, considering I think he went about 160 against us last time around. So, yeah, hopefully McCluggage provides a bit of a point of difference as well, and I think he can match it at least with most of the midfielders going around. So hopefully that's the case moving forward. But I guess looking towards, let me just bring this back up to.
I'll give my player of the week real
Oh
quick.
yeah, go for it.
My player of the week, probably someone who might not have been in a lot of sides at the start of the year, but Tristan Cherry from North
Oh yeah,
Melbourne is absolutely flying at the minute. He was, I think he was the first or second picked ruckman in our draft league, which obviously I have got Tristan Tristan Cherry. Otherwise, he wouldn't be my player of the week. But yeah, I can't complain at the 151 that he got. And in the matchup, it was basically the deciding factor. Because I only won the matchup by about 90 points. And the opponent that I had Tim English, who only
oh
got 83. So
yeah.
that's basically close to 90 points. So that was basically the difference between the two sides. So I can't really complain. And to make it better, the person that I played is actually a mad North Melbourne supporter. So that makes it better.
Oh no, 100%. That's one way to rub it in, I guess. But yeah, moving forward to our trade-ins for the week, I think we're going to do it a little bit differently for the next couple podcasts. Just because we're at the point of the season where a lot of people don't have trades, and B there's a bit of more of a limited pool with regards to players we want to pick. I did post this graphic on X a couple times, once with regards to rucks and once I think the round just gone with regards to point of differences, I guess, is what people are looking at to kind of really boost their ranking. There's no real point, in my opinion, anyway, to pick or go safe in this part of the season. You've only got a sample size of 5 games, including last round, to really work with. What we'll do is essentially we'll have this going for the rest of the run home, and essentially I can edit it and change it depending on who we think can come in or come out of that kind of best POD ranking system. But yeah, I know we had Darcy Cameron, your mate Ruckman, on at the moment. I think I bumped him out, in my opinion, to Brayshaw in particular, who seems to have got finished this season on a house on fire. Just bringing up his scores quickly. Yeah, I don't know if you've been paying much attention, Nath, to Freo's games. I mean, I guess not really been in Victoria, but looking at his last 4, he's 137, 137, 100, 128. Just seems to have found form at the right time of the season in comparison to Sarong, who's kind of stagnated a little bit. So he's one there. Ben Keys, I was pretty hot on. I ended up bringing, as I said, Huey McCluggage. But yeah, Crows had a shocker on the weekend, so 73 is respectable. McCluggage got that 91, as we said earlier. Sinclair probably got impacted just with how well our team did overall with regards to dominance on the field, so he wasn't as important with regards to scoring. Treloar is probably one that he was ranked, in my opinion, as a hard matchup against the Swans just in case of that tag, and he went absolutely berserk. He's one that, if you do have a trade in the bank, could be worthwhile. And Ed Richards copped the James Jordan tag on the weekend and still scored 117. Just thrives in that midfield and probably makes the Dogs a really good side in that midfield and just adds a very different dynamic. That's probably what they're missing. What are your thoughts on that group at the moment, Nathan? Is there anyone that you think can push into a kind of POD selection moving forward?
Yeah, well, the one for me, the one that stands out here is I'm presuming that is that Jack Sinclair from St
Yeah.
Kilda. He's the one that stands out for me on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think the role that he plays is very, very super coach friendly. I think Ross has finally settled him down back, or on the half back line, which I think's where he best plays anyway. So I think for POD, even in the midfield, I don't think you can go wrong with Sinclair. The only other one that I would probably consider on this list, I'm just gonna log in now real quick and have a look. Sorry, I should be much more organized than I am.
Yeah,
But that's all right. So, Ed Richards, I would probably say is a good pick only if you're desperate for a defender. I think there's probably better options in the midfield. And as for Andrew Brayshaw,
yeah,
well, I think Freo are flying at the minute. So, um, I mean, if you think Freo can keep up this form, he's probably not a bad pick, just for the rest of the year. I'm just having a look at him now. In fact, I cannot see that for some reason. He's in 7.8. I think 7,800 teams. 4%.
yeah,
So
very,
he's in
yeah,
4% of
4%,
teams. So yeah, that is probably the definition of a POD if you can keep up that form. So I think they'd be the only ones that at this stage of the year I would probably really only consider. Trelaw, I think Trelaw is an injury waiting to happen. I'm surprised he been on the park this long, given that he
Mhm.
was basically injury riddled at Collingwood. And as for McCluggage and Keys, I just think that their roles are too volatile for them to be consistent scoring options. So I think Sinclair would be my clear number one, and then probably Richards only as a defender. Um, and then Brayshaw, and then I would probably have the other three sort of a rung below them. But I guess
Yeah.
that you're at the stage of the year where you sort of go, if this is a player that I want, well, you just pick them in and hope that they do the best that they can.
Oh no, 100%. I mean, the reason I haven't got Brayshaw's percentage is I've run out of trade, so I can't actually check it on a trade function at SuperCoach. But um, yeah, Trelaw's probably the one that I think if you have trades and you're looking for someone particular in the midfield, I think he's your man. And I understand it from your perspective, Nath, about injury history and stuff like that and how quickly that can really, ruin a person's season. But Trelaw's only got 4 more games to go. Dogs are desperate for finals. They're pretty much competing with the Hawks at the moment. And as we've listed there, D's, Crows, and North to finish off the season. Is really a good run for him. D's don't tag, Crows don't tag, North don't tag really either. And it seems like Richards is above in the pecking order with regards to, potential tag targets. I know Trelaw has been targeted in the past, but just looking at his 3 scores, or 3 previous scores, nothing over less than 125. His lowest being 129 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I think the big risk there is injury, especially if that's your last trade. Brayshaw, I like the look of in the next 3 games, but has a really tough run home with Port and GWS to finish off the season. Yeah, I guess we'll keep this one running and change players in and out depending on how we like them
Yeah.
and potential people. Hopefully, by seasons, then we've got a good list of players and we can have a bit of a deeper discussion into kind of what went right and what went wrong with some of these players. But moving on to 2 trade outs in particular, I guess people are also in the same boat of if you have trades, you're probably planning to trade out someone. 2 players I've listed here. Bailey Dale at 523k got tagged at portions, played I think forward of the ball a little bit just to kind of get out of that tag. And Heaney's been very disappointing as an owner. I mean, I've owned him more seasons, so I can't really complain. But last 3 weeks in particular, got that suspension, missed the game, and hasn't scored above a ton since. What are your thoughts on these two? And I just wanted to get your thoughts on Heaney in particular, considering that obviously our forward line's so volatile, so maybe a trade out's not really viable with his price and kind of the others around him. But Is there a reason why you think he's actually scoring poorly, or is it just Sydney's form dipping with injuries and things like that?
Yeah, well, I'll answer the first question of the first part, which is what to do with both of them. I think you just got to keep both of them. I think especially Heaney, the forward line, as you touched on, the forward line's volatile enough. The last thing that I think you want to be doing is trading out Heaney. I know he's not doing particularly well at the minute, which would be terribly frustrating. Um, but um, but yeah, you can't be wasting trades at this time of the year, especially when the trades are at a premium on someone who is still, I believe he's still a top 6 forward. So, I mean, if you're going to trade him out because he's not scoring well now, you need boxing out. He's still the second highest scoring forward across the year. And as I've repeatedly said on the podcast, outside of Flanders, Heaney, and Zorko, everyone else is a literal roller coaster. So I just think that you've probably got to hold. You've probably got to just hold both of them. Um,
Yeah,
as for the second question about the Brownlow form, well, he was actually performing like ridiculously above in the first half of the year. I think his player rating points were about is averaging about 26 for the season. Which, to put that into comparison, I think only Patrick Dangerfield in his one of his Brownlow years um has been able to maintain that higher player rating average across the whole season. So I guess it was inevitable that at some stage he was going to sort of drop back to the pack, which is what he's done.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I'm not really surprised that his drop off has come now. But I have noticed that in terms of his actual like just raw player rating numbers. So I think I saw last night on First Crack. I think across the first sort of 15 weeks, he was number one rated player for the first 15 weeks. But I think since round 16,
yeah,
I think he's dropped down to the mid 60s. So I mean, it's not an ideal time of the year to be going out of form, given that we're probably on the runway now for finals. So this is a time where you probably want to be hitting peak performance
yeah,
as you're building to finals. So but yeah, I have touched on Sydney in general about their drop off just in a few little areas. But I think on Sunday, or I think yesterday, perhaps it came to the foray for more observers of Sydney, sort of just how much they have dropped off from the start of the year. So I guess the thing for Sydney now is that they've got to determine whether or not this is a mulligan or a trend. If it's a mulligan, back to business next week. If it's a trend, well, then I think you can start perhaps looking at them and saying that they're probably not the best side in it, which
yeah,
just probably 6 weeks ago you would have had rocks thrown at you for saying that. But for all the stats people out there, they have been flagging this for a little while about Sydney's drop off. So yeah, I guess it's time for Sydney to sort of spark up again and yeah, find some form going into finals.
yeah, yeah. No, 100%. Um, yeah, I think you're right in there. Obviously, trades are at a premium. You'd be very lucky to have more than one, I think, at this stage. But I think if we had to pick between the two, Dale's probably the one for me that you
He'd
can
be the
afford
one, yeah.
to get rid of, because I think you'd be kicking yourself if you decide. I mean, it's obviously a big risk; it could pay off, but um, after that Port game, which is quite tricky for Heaney, Pies and Dons are two favourable matchups. Having said that, though, Dale's got three favourable matchups in the D's, Crows, and North coming up. So, yeah, it'd be a tough one, but I think Dale would hurt less if he rebounded very strongly. But moving on to our trade targets for round 21. This is interesting because didn't seem to impact any player in particular to a huge effect this round. Just gone, and we'll, I guess we'll have that conversation in a bit more detail at season's end to kind of if we think the tags are going to impact players next season, and if that impacts player choice come SuperCoach in 2025. But yeah, in my opinion, James Jordan probably goes to Houston or Butters in Port. I thought he'd go to Dale, but he went straight to Richards at the first centre bounce. So I think it really depends on who they rate better as a player that can impact games. Bedford, I can easily see going to Will Day potentially for the Hawks with how well Day's going. Neil Bullen's an interesting one. He's one that's popped up in the last couple of weeks as Melbourne's kind of go-to tag if they feel like it. Could see them going straight to Richards because of how damaging he is as a two-way runner. And defensively speaking, Neil Bullen could probably hurt him the other way, potentially. And Chincotta, I'd be interested to see your thoughts, Nathan, in a big game Saturday night. I'm assuming you're going in a must-win game for both clubs on either end of the spectrum. Could easily see him going to Dacos. That seems a very obvious candidate, considering Dacos got about 35 disposals in the first quarter or something ridiculous. I mean, he got about 17, but yeah, it felt like 35. But what are your thoughts on those tags? And there anyone else come into mind that could spell danger for an opposition player?
Yeah, well, I'll address the side first, and then I'll touch on Nick Dacos at the end. So tags. So obviously, yeah, again, every week now, Ross Lyons brought back the tags. So this is just something we're gonna have to deal with. I would be surprised if Jordan went to Butters. I think Houston's probably the more likely matchup for James Jordan, given that he seems to be tagging the halfback flankers. So I'd be surprised if he started on Butters. But if Butters gets hot, I think they would probably prefer to use Callum Mills in that role on Butters, just because I think Jordan's made a home there as a half forward defender. And I think Mills coming back into some form. I think if Butters gets off the hook, I think that's an easy lockdown job for Mills. Yeah, Bedford, I can see him taking Will Day. He's basically transformed Hawthorn's midfield since he came back. Neil Bullen's an interesting one. So he hasn't really tagged Neil Bullen. Melbourne don't really like tagging with Neil Bullen because he offers so much going forward. So I feel like it'll be a wait and see on that, what Melbourne decide to do with Neil Bullen. But yeah, I think if one of those halfback flankers, so Richards or Dale, get hot, I think they'll send Neil Bullen to him. I don't think they'll go with Bont or Libba for Neil Bullen. I think that matchup won't work at all.
Yeah.
And as for Carlton, well, I mean, Alex Chincotta has done tagging roles, but I don't know if that's really the ideal matchup for Chincotta. I'd be tempted to roll the dice. I know he's not a tagger per se, but I'd be interested to roll the dice with Sam Walsh at stoppages because he's got the endurance to go with Nick Dacos. He's got the body frame to go with Nick Dacos. And Sam Walsh hasn't been in the best of form sort of recently anyway. So perhaps sending him to someone might sort of reinvigorate him a little bit. I know that it probably will end up being Chincotta onto Dacos, but I don't know. I just feel like that if Chincotta goes to Nick Dacos, I feel like that Collingwood can just manipulate that matchup to how they wanted to. Whereas if Walsh goes to Dacos, I think Carlton would back themselves in to win clearance against Collingwood. And I think if that happens, I think Walsh will get a lot of free ball. And considering the fact that if Carlton are winning at the stoppage game and Nick Dacos is playing on Sam Walsh, or Carlton go with the Sam Walsh matchup, you would think that he'd be getting out goal side a lot, and probably the last player I would want for Carlton to have the ball kicking inside 50, at least visually seeing, is Sam Walsh. So that's a bit of a left field option. But the only other ones that I can see happening, so that might happen, I just got to quickly get up all the games. Bear with me. So West Coast, Gold Coast, no. North Melbourne, Richmond, no. Geelong, Adelaide, no. No. Yeah. The only other one I can see maybe is Sam Durham maybe going to one of those Fremantle midfielders, whether it be Sarong or Brayshaw. And I don't know, is your tagger, is Windhager back?
I don't.
No.
No, I think the only player that potentially is back against the Lions is Philippou. Windhager's was listed as a 3 to 5 weeker. So yeah, I wouldn't say Ross is
Yeah. So
sitting back early.
I feel like Ross Lyon will have a plan for Lockie Neal.
100%.
I just don't know what the plan is. I don't know if he's gonna tag him across the entire ground, or if he's gonna send like a Jack Steele to him at stoppage just to mind him. But I feel like even though he's not listed on here, I feel like the Lion will have a plan for Lockie Neal.
Yeah.
So I just don't know who the tagger will be, but yeah, that's just something else to keep in mind. But yeah, the only other one that I think is standing out is probably Durham on one of the Fremantle midfielders. And the other one that's not actually listed here, he has done this job before, but Scott Pendlebury has done a bit of defensive work on Patrick Cripps the last few times that Collingwood have played Carlton. Just minding him around at stoppages. So I wouldn't be surprised. I know it's Pendlebury's 400th game. But I wouldn't be surprised if he got given a job just minding Patrick Cripps around the stoppages. Just to sort of try and limit that influence that he has at stoppage. But yeah, otherwise, I think all the other things you said on this tag alert are probably going to happen. So, as I said, I think it's just something that you're just going to have to, unfortunately, just keep your eye on throughout the rest of the year and beyond.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think one to keep an eye on, and in regards to St Kilda versus Brizzy on Sunday, Arvo, is Liam Soccer played a defensive role on Zach Merritt. I think I thought he started on him after half time after Merritt started to pop off, but he started on him at the first centre bounce. Watching the replay, pretty much lined up on him at first centre bounce. He did pop off a little bit, but I can see Stocker being quite a good matchup for Neil and just being really aggressive around stoppages and really get under his skin. And Stocker's a perfect candidate to do so. So I think he'd be the perfect matchup versus Neil. Not saying Stocker will do it every week. I think Stocker's a very like-for-like type of player. Like the likes of Butters and stuff, he just can't keep up. But Neil's not a super quick player around the ground. So, yeah, I think Stocker could do a handy job on Neil, that's for sure. But yeah, moving forward before we get on to Nathan's rant for the week, our top three vice captains of the round for this upcoming round. Sheasel went absolutely berserk. I was lucky enough to v Sam. Got a 160 against the Cats. Definitely saved my score in that regards to make it a decent one. Could see him doing quite nicely against Richmond. As much as they might send a tagger to him, I don't think they will. Dacos got about 40, as I said, got a huge amount of disposals in the first quarter. Slowed down a little bit, but I think Sheasel, just with his ability to float to halfback, if a tag comes his way, I think will just dominate at Marvel. A lot smaller ground as well. Just gets a heap of it down there. If Colby McKercher comes back from his general soreness against Richmond, I think he could do some damage as well. Sammy Flanders has not gone under 100 at all this season. Plays West Coast on Friday night. I think Friday night is a double-up game, which is a bit awkward, but I could see him doing quite nice against the Eagles. Scored a 105 against them the last time they played, but could have played a different role perhaps. But I think, yeah, just ultra consistent. I think if the Suns are playing later in the round, for sure would be a good captaincy option. VC, maybe someone a bit riskier would be worthwhile. And Zorko versus our boys. I would have said earlier in the season, 100% slap the C on him, no problem. But it just feels like our forward line's starting to function a little better and the pressure's dialed up a little bit, that it seems like even though halfbackers are getting a ton of possession down back. They're probably not using it as effectively due to that perceived kind of pressure. So it'll be interesting to see what Zorko does, but I think he's just uber consistent anyway. What are your thoughts on those options? And is there anyone, just thinking back to Classic, who would you bring, especially considering this is a first round of finals for SuperCoach? I think it's super important this week to nail your VC and C and try and get a bit of an advantage over your opponents coming into the finals.
Yeah, well, I think we flagged Lockie Neal last week as being a viable captain option, and he probably was borderline for some people. I know he only got 117, which I guess is probably that really tricky range. But I think we did flag Nick Dacos on the Sunday as being the go-to option if Neil didn't score what, or if Neil didn't do well, or you just wanted a higher score. So we did hit that one on the nail. So I feel like we're probably doing well in that regard. But as for this week, yeah, I think for mine, I think ideally I always try and look to Friday night for a VC captain. So I can't believe that looking on this thing here, I can't believe you haven't got the most obvious vice captain of all time, which is Marcus Bontempelli.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Against the D's, yeah. 100,
given
that's
that he's averaging 124 for the year and he's virtually untaggable. So I think Marcus Bontempelli is probably going to ultimately be the way that most people go for vice captaincy. Given that I don't think Melbourne have a matchup for him, I think the only way he doesn't do well is if Gawn just absolutely dominates the hit outs. But even
yeah.
then, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I can't trust any Gold Coast players away from home. I know Flanders, as you touched on, I don't think he's scored under 100 this year, but I just can't trust Gold Coast away from home until they actually
Oh, yeah, it
show
is a
me
way.
that
Yeah.
they can actually do anything away from home. So yeah, that's that. And then based on what I saw on Sunday, um, Harry Sheasel could be on track for another big score. So I feel like, yeah, I feel like most people will do Bontempelli, but I feel like that Harry Sheasel is definitely a viable vice captain option as well this week. I would say probably ideally you'd want the vice captain to be done probably the twilight game at the latest. Unless you've got someone in the very last game. So the St Kilda Brisbane game. I don't think
Yeah.
you'd have many more because I think the more popular one this year is that Livingston from West Coast, and he plays on the Friday night. So it sort of makes it a little bit tricky, I think, this week to loophole unless you've run out of trades and you've got, like a Windhager or someone on your side. So I think for this week, you'd probably just want to play it simple. I think Bontempelli is definitely would be my go-to vice captain. And then it just gives you the rest of the week to decide what to do with the captaincy. But I think Harry Sheasel, even though I know it's a Saturday game, I think he'd probably be the one that I would go with as a captain, just given the form that he's in and the fact that Richmond probably won't go after him based on what I saw. So I don't think there's really a lot of players from any of the other games who I think I would have any confidence in actually backing for the captaincy. I know I've got Zorko up here, but I feel like Ross will have a plan for Zorko as well, given his roll off half back. I feel like that Ross isn't just going to let him just kick the ball and slice through that St Kilda zone off half back all night. So yeah, I feel like it's probably going to be Bont and Sheasel who are the two that I go with.
Yeah, it's just I completely forgot about Bontempelli and does play Melbourne side who are struggling form wise for sure, and I think that could be a smart move. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a spike game from Bont down at the G and a really prime time game for him to flourish. But moving on to everyone's favourite segment of the week, I think Nathan's got a few targets in mind. One of which is versing your mind actually on the weekend. It's be interesting how you frame this one. Here's Nathan's Nags and take it away.
Right, now, I'm going to start off with Mr. Chad Warner. So, again, like your running mate in Isaac Heaney, 38 points, Chad, is not acceptable at this time of the year. And just like I said last week or whenever I nagged on Isaac Heaney, you've got a golden chance to win a grand final, which is every player's dream. And right now you're playing like a mid-table team. So you, as well as the rest of your side, have to lift. Otherwise, you are going to just fail on the year. And I think, to be honest, I think from where Sydney were, I think to not win the grand final would be a failure. To not make the grand final would be soul destroying for the Swans. So I still think they're the best side in it, but they are horribly out of form. And Chad, you are part of the reason why they are horribly out of form. So we need you to lift from SuperCoach, and we need you to lift from a Sydney perspective so that you can get your season back on track. As for Carlton, well, once again, we've touched on this all year. For those of you who watch all of the stats shows, again, Carlton cannot defend stoppages. Port Adelaide scored nearly half their score from stoppage. And most of that damage came in the second half when they got on top. So I don't know what to make of Carlton. They are in a very, very vulnerable position. And having a look at the ladder, unbelievably, they are only one game away from ninth spot. So for a side who so many people said were probably the second best side in it, they are actually in danger of falling out of the 8 if they lose. If they lose to Collingwood, and then they lose another game on the run home, because they don't have an easy run home, Carlton. I know they've got us this week, and then I think they've got Hawthorn in there. They've got St Kilda in there. So they don't have an easy run home. So again, I just touched on Sydney being a failure. I think if Carlton don't make a prelim final, given the year that they've had, then that's a failure. And it would be almost unforgivable. I feel like Icon Park will not exist anymore. It will be burnt off the face of the planet if Carlton miss the finals from where they've been all year. So I don't know what it is with them, but I did see last night as well that Jacob Wiedering. So Jacob Wiedering is the number one player this year for one-on-one contest wins in the back half. And then the rest of the side are ranked 17th as a team. So it's basically Wiedering or bust in the back line. So I think this is a massive problem for Michael Voss to do. And let's not forget that Collingwood actually beat Carlton earlier in the year. And they beat Carlton from stoppage, which is where Carlton have been weak all year. So even though I'm probably going to, in the next segment, I'm probably going to lean towards Carlton. I know that that's going to upset a lot of Collingwood supporters that might tune in. But I think that Carlton are gettable for Collingwood, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if Collingwood actually won this game. And if they do win this game, I can almost guarantee you now that Collingwood are going to win this game based off what they do at stoppage and not what they do from turnover. Because Carlton are actually quite good at defending turnovers. So to the Carlton back line, to the Carlton midfield, you guys need to get back to your ruthless selves, because this season is slipping away fast, and I don't think sides this year can win it from outside the top 4. So the rest of the team, you've got to somehow magically overnight learn how to defend one-on-one. Otherwise, your season is shot. and your ground might be no longer in existence if the unthinkable happens and they actually miss the finals.
Oh,
And that is my nag for the week.
yeah, I don't think it'd be. There's no point going down to Lygon Street if Carlton don't
That
get into
place will be
finals.
right central if they miss the 8.
Yeah, no, 100%. It'd be a disaster class if they somehow stuff this up. Considering there
I
was pretty
mean,
much intention to make finals
the
against grand final.
the amazing thing out of all of this is if Collingwood win, they're actually equal age. Now it would be ironic all year if Essendon and Carlton, who were everyone's hot tips throughout the year, missed the finals, and Collingwood, who virtually everyone has given up on, somehow sneak into the finals. That would be ironic. I don't think it's
Oh
going to
yeah,
happen. But I just think that would be ironic if the two hottest sides in town missed out and the one side who everyone gave up on actually snuck in. So, yeah, I don't know what to make of Carlton at the minute. I don't know what to make of just about any side at the minute outside of maybe Brisbane and Fremantle. So, I feel like the team nags are going to be coming a lot more than the player nags because the teams ultimately are the ones that win the grand finals. So all the teams, you're all on notice.
yeah, 100%. No, 100% right there. I guess moving on now. I'm just gonna stop this for a minute. Yeah. So as I said beforehand, as a bit of a thank you to kind of our return to the podcasting scene after a bit of our hiatus, with different reasons. We're doing a bit of a giveaway, as you saw last episode, with some footy cards that we're opening on recording at the end of, or kind of towards the end of the episode. Pretty much I've got 3 cards, which I'm just going to show on screen now. Hopefully this works. So yeah, you can see I've got 3 cards open here. I've just got picked up some from random kind of years, and I'm going to compile the kind of best pulls from them as a kind of a giveaway package. So Footy Stars 2022 Jumbo Pack, an old 2008 pack, and a 2006 pack. So yeah, very old couple there. Hopefully some good pulls with regards to players. But I'll leave it over to Nath to give his kind of rundown of round 21. I know we did quite well in the tipping scene last round. So yeah, how are the teams looking for this upcoming round?
Yeah, well, I'll start off just real quick. So I did get 6 out of 9. I know my tipping comp will say I got 7 out of 9, but that's because I didn't tip Friday night's game. And if you don't tip, you get the away side. So I'll claim Port Adelaide, even though I didn't mean to tip Port Adelaide. So effectively, I got 6 out of 9 if I had a tip. So I'm looking to round 21. So Bulldogs and Melbourne at Marvel. Look, the Bulldogs should be winning this game, if I'm being perfectly honest. But the Bulldogs are so up and down that I wouldn't be surprised if they actually drop this game. Melbourne, I know Melbourne earlier in the last decade in the tens could not win a game at all at Marvel. I think they had like an 18 match losing streak there or some ridiculous thing. But they don't seem to play that ground too badly. But I think this is their only visit to the ground this year. So I don't think they've actually been there yet this year. So I'm going to tip the Bulldogs for this game, but again, I would not be surprised at all, given how volatile the Dogs are, if they drop this game. So moving on to the next one. So West Coast and Gold Coast. I'll be very quick here. Surely Gold Coast break the duck here. I know I said that against North Melbourne, but surely Gold Coast are going to break the duck here. And beat West Coast. I think they've got the better team across the field. North Melbourne and Richmond. Well, again, this is the Wooden Spoon Cup. And I think I will be tipping the Kangaroos in this game. Just given that the fact that it's at Marvel and the fact that Richmond don't like going to Marvel. But it will be interesting to see if that was more of a Hardwick thing or if it was actually a Richmond thing. So I think right now, I think I have slightly more trust in North Melbourne. So I will be leaning towards North Melbourne. Geelong and Adelaide, well, I think Geelong just have to win this game given where they are on the ladder and the fact that Adelaide can no longer make the finals. So I think Geelong just win this game. Collingwood and Carlton, I've already touched on that. I will be very, very reluctantly tipping Carlton. But again, if Collingwood are going to win the game, it's going to be done at stoppage. Port Adelaide and Sydney is an interesting game. So Port Adelaide historically don't do well against top 8 sides. But Sydney are that out of form at the minute that if Port Adelaide are any chance of beating Sydney, I think they've got them at the right time. In saying that, I still think I'm going to lean slightly towards Sydney, but not with as much confidence as perhaps what I would have had last week or the week before. The Giants and the Hawthorn, this is a very, very hard game to tip. The Giants do not have a good record at Manuka Oval. I know they won there earlier in the year, but they don't have a good record. And I think Hawthorn are actually the best side since round 9. I think we touched on this last week as well. So again, this is a real toss of the coin game, but I think when it's a 50-50 game, I think I would generally lean towards the home team being the Giants. So again, I'm probably going to go the Giants, but again, not a great deal of confidence there. Essendon and Fremantle. If you asked me this 3 weeks ago, I probably would have leant towards Essendon given that it's in Melbourne. But I don't think you can possibly tip Essendon based on current form. I didn't tip them last week. I tried to steer everyone towards St Kilda. So if you listened, that was a good tip. And Fremantle play the MCG quite well for an interstate side. I know they beat Melbourne there earlier in the year, and they don't do too badly there. So, and Essendon don't have a great percentage or a great record at the MCG this year. So I think I will be tipping Fremantle in that game. And St Kilda and Brisbane, well, I did flag a couple of weeks ago that I felt like if there was one team in that bottom part of the ladder, so like the bottom 6 or 7 who could do damage to the 8, it was St Kilda. So I can't, as much as I want St Kilda to win, just to sort of keep the roller coaster going along for the back half of the year, I just can't see them beating Brisbane at Marvel, given that Brisbane's record in Marvel actually is quite good. And I think playing at Marvel, it sort of plays into the way Brisbane play with that high attacking, high intensity sort of game style. And I think Marvel has a historical knack for being a bit of a shootout ground. So I think the only way St Kilda can win this game is again to make it a scrap, or to basically do what they did against Essendon, which was just completely disarm them. But I think Brisbane are going much better than what Essendon are. So again, I will lean towards Brisbane. But it is a very hard tipping round. I don't think I'm going to get 6 out of 9 like I did last week. So I think the aim this week should probably be to 50-50 it. If you probably get more than 5, you're probably doing quite well. And if you get, 4-3, I don't think it's the end of the world. But yeah, it is a very challenging tipping round, probably more than last week.
Oh yeah, 100% agree. I think there'll be a few season-defining games. Collingwood, Carlton being one of them. Dogs, Essendon. Sorry, not Dogs, Essendon. Dogs, Melbourne. Another big game on Friday night, which will shape the 8. And obviously looking at Sydney Port, big game to see.
Essendon, Fremantle.
Real life potentials. Essendon have a season on the line kind of game against Freo at the G. It's a big game considering that's at the G. Actually, I thought that was at Marvel. And then 440. St Kilda is still a stupidly mathematically a chance to make finals if we go undefeated. So I guess the dream is still there in regards to a potential upset. But I guess it's also a good kind of test to test yourself against the best teams in the comp with a kind of revitalized game plan, as everyone's been saying. So yeah, definitely interested to see how we go. Just while Nathan was going through his tip, just a quick one. So as I've been doing with those 3 packs, I'm going to add them to a pool of the inserts that we've been packing throughout last episode, this episode, and most likely the 2 final episodes of the season, just because I'm away for the next 2 weeks. So unfortunately, I won't be able to record like a round review like we are now. Yeah, Sean Darcy insert from the 2022 series. I think he's 8 out of 250th, I think. So that'll get added to the pot. Carazzo's from the old one, and Travis Johnson, a real throwback to a D's Lions player from back in the day. So they'll all be added through. And then once we hit 1,000 followers on Twitter and 100 on YouTube, that will go live. And yeah, lucky winner will get to choose a couple cards from that pool. But moving on to, before we wrap it up for today's show, we've got 2 games actually. So Nathan's in luck for testing his footy knowledge. We're going to go through Worpel in a minute and see if we can get it in one again. And another one that I re-stumbled across, I played it in the past, called Gridley, which is actually quite an interesting game that tests your footy skills. You can obviously play along at home or go online yourself and test your skills. Gridley's a bit more of a picking unique players. Like you're going to get a lower score if you go common or try and find some unique names that you can think of with regards to that. But let's bring that up on screen now. Where is it? Worpel's first up. So just looking at the player silhouette now. Just looking at that one, Nath, who's your first bet on that?
Oh God. Have you got any idea?
I would say just off the bat, not Will Day. Who's the other dude from Hawthorn that plays for them?
James Worpel.
No. He's in and out of the side a lot of the time. Let me just bring up the team sheet from last weekend. My guess would have been Josh Ward. Let me see.
Ward.
Let's start with. I might not even be in the game yet. So Victorian club, small player, doesn't play mid. Debuted before 2022. Obviously above the age of 20 and as a number above 25. So it could be a small forward or a small defender. What are your thoughts, Nath?
I got no idea. I don't think it's him, but the only one, I mean, he's from Victoria, so that doesn't really help a lot. I don't know, maybe if he's, I don't know, maybe Jay Kelly.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, you got medium defender, debuted in the same year, aged the same, so he's definitely in that mould, but doesn't play for Essendon, has similar colours. Could be a Carlton Collingwood player potentially, just looking at where they've debuted and what position they play. Just trying to think, St Kilda defenders probably not, considering we're quite a young side. My bet it could be.
So he's 29.
He's aging a bit. Your boys down back are pretty young as well, so I don't think it's a Collingwood player. Could it be a Dogs player maybe, but playing defence?
And his jumper number's higher than 29.
So it's a higher number. Just looking at potentially, could it be? Looking at Carlton's defensive line, McGovern's not higher than 29. I was going to say Adam Sard, but he's not it. He's 42.
Could it be Oleg Markov?
Oh yeah, that's not a bad guess actually. Nah, he debuted the year after Kelly.
Oh, he debuted the year after. Okay.
Is there an old Dogs defender flinging around that could be it, or even a North player? Oh, it could be D's actually. Could it be Salem? Nah, he doesn't have a jumper number.
Yeah, no, so it's between 29 and 37. So that we have got something out of that guess at least.
Just looking at who. Oh, sure, it's not a St Kilda player. Unless it's Jack Sinclair. Nah, it's above. Jack Sinclair, actually. He's 20. I know he's 29. It could actually be him.
Oh, really?
There we go.
Hey,
Should have known that from the start. Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, there you go. You're better guessing now.
I think the Jake Cully one sort of opened that up a lot.
Yeah, I probably should have realised it was Sinclair. I didn't realise how Sinclair's actually that age bracket. I thought he was a bit younger.
I thought he was younger than that.
Yeah. But it kind of makes sense thinking about it now. Now the next game, if this pops up, let me just see if I can flip it across. To Gridley. So this game, Nathan, I know you haven't heard about it before, but essentially it's a box of 9. Now, obviously the guesses here, you got 9 guesses. If you're wrong, you're wrong. But if you're right, it's dependent on the uniqueness of the player, if that makes sense. So, for example, North 10 plus tackles. If you go LDU, chances are you're probably right, but you won't get a higher score. You'll get a lower score just because of the popularity of the people that have guessed him. Say you pick a really unique player. I don't know, just off the top of my head, Will Phillips, for example, could potentially have a 10 plus tackle game, get a better score if that makes sense. But just going through the grid, you can play along as well as we go along, or you can hop on at a later time and do it yourself for a different, option. But yeah, North 30 plus hit out game. What are your thoughts? Doesn't have to be a current player, I think.
Well, I feel like the obvious one will be Todd Goldstein.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's probably an ideal option there. I'm trying to think who was the ruckman before. I'm trying to think who the ruckman was before.
Goldie.
Yeah.
Drew Petrie back in the day as a potential
No, I don't think it'd be Drew Petrie. No, I don't think Drew Petrie would be the one that I'd be going with. 30 plus hit outs. So, I don't know. I mean, Scott McMahon was he wasn't a ruckman. No, he wasn't a ruckman.
I reckon just put Goldie and see what the percentage is. See, play it safe this one. Yeah,
I think he'd be common. Yeah,
26% owned. North and a Tristan Xerri teammates, obviously from the current crop of North players. I guess we can go really unique here if you want. Is there any one player that you think is a lowly guessed answer?
probably Liam Shields.
Yeah, that's not a bad one actually. There you go, legendary 1.1 selectors. That's actually a really good pick. And a North player from a 10 plus tackle game. I guess the answer from that is probably LDU is a possible answer. The one I'm thinking of potentially is Tom Powell. I know he had a fair few tackle games. There we go, 1%.
Yeah.
195 centimeters or taller and a 35 hit out game. So you're obviously looking at a ruckman other than Goldie.
What about Darcy Cameron?
Oh yeah. There you go, 2% owned. I didn't even realize he played for North. 195 centimeters playing with Tristan Xerri. I think the obvious answer is Nick Larkey, but I reckon Comben is not a bad one. What were you gonna say?
Toby Pink.
Oh, that's a good one actually.
No, he's 194.
Oy, that'd be close though. 195 centimeters and 10 plus tackles. That's a hard. Oh, Xerri would be the answer there, but could you potentially put him twice? Yeah, 9% there.
I was going to say, is Ben Cunnington not tall?
Nah, he's shorter than that, 100%. I guess looking forward to the next column there, 100 games and 30 plus hit outs, or 100 games and less, so a rookie listed player, or player that didn't play too many games. Drew Petrie may be an answer, you reckon? That played a ruck stint even as a sole ruck one day. I don't know. Because it has to be a ruckman that hasn't played for long.
No, I was gonna say how about Mason Cox, but he's played more than 100 games. That's a bit of a tricky one. That one.
It could be just basing off a rookie play. Oh, Ned Moyle from Gold Coast.
Yeah, he had a good game, didn't he, Ned Moyle? Yeah.
There you go, 6%. 100 games or less, or rookie listed player.
This is the whole team.
With Sherry, that's pretty much, yeah, you're right. The whole team, I reckon, and obvious. Let's go. Well, Sheasler and McKercher are probably two common names.
Let's go Zane Dersma.
Oh, yeah. Zane. There you go, 5%. Oh, not too bad. And the lucky last one, 100 games or less and 10 plus tackles. I think Garcia is probably one from St Kilda. I know he's got huge tackle numbers.
Oh, well, do him then.
Hugo, all right. I think it's Hugo. Oh, I'd missed it. Who was it? I might not have had a 10 plus game. Anyway, stuff that one up. It could have been the other Garcia, but that's all right. Who are the popular options? So the most popular ones there: Goldie, Jaden Stevenson, a North player with Tristan Sherry teammate. Ben Cunnington, you're right there with 10 plus tackles. Sanderlands, 30 plus hitouts. That's an obvious one. Nick Larkey, as I mentioned, was an obvious option for a teammate. Paddy Cripps, a given for 195 centimetre plus 10 plus tackles. Sherry, as I said, 100 plus gamer, or 100 games or less, and a 30 plus hitout. Harry Sheasel, as I said, him and McKerch are probably heavily featured, and Matty Rowell, 10 plus tackles. That's a given as well. But yeah, I guess that's a bit of fun. Hopefully we can do that.
What was the other tab? There was another tab up there next to most popular.
Oh, leaderboard.
Oh, leaderboard. Okay.
Anyway, so how we that for the rest of the round. But yeah, that'll be it for this episode today. It's gone a little bit longer than expected, but hopefully you've got a bit of good content there, not just from a SuperCoach perspective, but I guess from a bit of a general AFL talk as we lead towards finals. I guess me and Nath are going to be talking more from a general footy perspective than specific SuperCoach, considering that SuperCoach finals are here and there's not that many rounds left until the end of the season. So obviously SuperCoach-wise, we're almost done. But hopefully towards the end of the season, we'll talk about how our season's gone personally from a classic perspective, our lessons learned, and also Nathan's unique kind of draft perspective is a very different ball game altogether. As I said, we will continue to pump out hopefully a few more SC clubs before I head off, and also when I come back, and we've got a few guests lined up for that one as well, and hopefully Nathan can do a bit of a deep dive as well for the Pies one in the near future. That's going to be a very hot topic, especially if the Pies do somehow make finals or they miss out altogether. And as I said, the giveaway, we're very close to 1,000 on Twitter and 100 on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to both of them and you're in the running to win that package deal once that pops off. And other than that, we'll see you in a couple weeks for the round review. But hopefully I'll have to have a fiddle around with my iPad and see if I'm able to still post some shorter content format with regards to how I'm going as well, particularly if I can pump that out very easily. Other than that, we'll catch you in a fortnight for the round review.